First, let's get our sublimation image printed.
Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Shawn, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how I combine two of my favorites, embroidery and sublimation. So I'm going to go over the supplies, and then we're going to get everything hooped up onto the machine so we can get her stitched out, and I can, of course, show you the finished result. So starting off with the supplies, I am going to be using a piece of no-show mesh cutaway stabilizer, and I'm going to be using a Gildan unisex sweatshirt, which I've already have my center point marked on there. I'm going to be using my most used and my favorite mighty hoop, my 8x13 mighty hoop. And then I do have two different types of fabric or material that you can sublimate on. First, just being some polyester fabric, and the second is this here huge roll of sublimation HTV that I have. So the difference with the two, between the two, I mean, it may be obvious for some, but if you're just getting started and new to this, so with the sublimation HTV, you do have that carrier sheet on there. So the shiny side is the carrier sheet. And then you have the sublimation fabric, the polyester fabric on the other side. And it is very smooth to touch, okay? Now, I initially bought this fabric years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, and I got a huge roll. As you can see, I still have a lot left. And initially, I purchased this so I could sublimate on darker fabrics. Because, of course, when you're sublimating, you cannot use dark fabrics or some color fabrics. And so I purchased this. What I would do is put it on my cutter, cut my outline of my sublimation design, and then press it onto my garment, or peel the carrier sheet off, put this onto the garment and put my sublimation image on there and press them, and I'm done. Over the years, I started using it for sublimation. For embroidery, combining embroidery and sublimation. So this is also a way that you can do that. But this has many other uses. Now, with the polyester fabric, you will need to add heat and bond light to your fabric, to the back of the fabric. So once your design has finished embroidering, then you can press it and you're good to go. Now, with the sublimation HTV, you will not have to add any heat and bond on here because it already has that adhesive. That's what the carrier sheet is here for. And so I use, for the sublimation fabric, heat and bond light, and it will have that purple color on there. And you can also get it in the smaller rolls. I want to say 5 yards by like 12 inches or something like that from Amazon, but I just buy it in bulk. But make sure it is heat and bond light, not heat and bond ultra hold, okay? And now, so with that, there are two different ways that you can sublimate your image onto your fabric, and so you can set it up correctly when you embroider or when you start to stitch out for your applique design. All right, so I printed out two ways here. The first way, and this is a photo of me and my husband parasailing, and this was back in like 2022 over the Gulf of Mexico. You could just print out an image, if there's not any particular pictures that you want to show up in those letters. In each individual applique letter, you can just print out an image, put it down, and let the stitches fall where they may, okay? Another way, which is a way that I love, is creating the text. So I've already digitized everything. And so I started off in Canva. I created my design, sized it and then brought it into my Silhouette Studio. And it's a process. I was going to include it in this video, but this video probably would have been about an hour long, and you may not have stuck around for that long of a time. So I left that part out, but you can use the embroidery design to create your text. So what I'm going to do while the initial placement stitch is stitching on the machine, I'm going to go ahead and cut out these letters. So then all I have to do is just once it does this tack down stitch, all I have to do is set the letters down and I'm good to go. And then it'll just do the final satin stitch. So this is the way that I prefer because I'm able to have more control over the placement of what goes into each letter. So I stretched my design out so I can have some of the city back there at the bottom, the water, and then make sure that I could get a picture or get a clear image of the parasail and me and my husband up there. So that is another way you could do it. So you have two different options on how you can do this. Now, if you do want me to do a detailed tutorial on how I created both of these images, as well as digitize the design to fit these images, well, at least fit this one, let me know in the comments if you're willing to stick around for about a good 45-50 minute tutorial, and I'll definitely make that happen, okay? And I did use, so for these images, as you can see, they sublimated beautifully. And I did use my MakerFlo sublimation paper. Look at the ink release on these papers. Like no ink was left behind, okay? So I love their sublimation paper. I have it in the rolls, in the sheets, in all different sizes. You can't go wrong with their sublimation paper. It's the best I've used over the years. Now that I got all the explanation and the supplies out the way, I'm gonna go ahead and hoop the sweatshirt up. I'll be using my HoopMaster hooping station, and then I'm gonna move the camera over to the machine so I can get everything hooped up. And then while that is stitching out, I'm going to start cutting out my letters, so I'll be ready to go for my applique. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this hooped up and then move you over to the machine so we can get the ball rolling. So I have everything hooped up and ready to go. I have my pattern already selected, my colors, as well as my hoop. So I'm gonna go into embroidery mode. And first thing that I always do is a trace to make sure my placement is where I want it to be. If not, I'll make any adjustments that I need to and go from there. But it is actually looking pretty good. I may have to move it up just a little bit, but not much. Yeah, so it is perfectly centered. I am going to move up about right there, and I'm going to do another trace. And let's see. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that initial placement stitch out, and then I'll go ahead and bring you back for the next step. All right, the placement stitch is finished. Now, normally with a regular applique, at this point, this would still be on the machine, and then you would just lay down your fabric and let it do the tack down stitch, and then you would bring it to the table and you would cut around and then put it back on the machine so it can finish stitching out. Since I've already cut out my letters, I'm going to, now this is a placement stitch. I'm taking it off the machine. I'm going to take the heat and bond off my letters, and then I'm going to lightly use my iron to iron them down to hold them in place so they don't shift while they're doing this next stitch, okay? And I'm just making sure everything is good and smooth so I have a nice flat surface, okay? Now, with that being said, normally when I'm doing a sublimation embroidery design, because the polyester cuts out really good on my cutter, I have a Cameo 4, I would just send the design to my cutter, let it cut out these letters, and be done with it. I actually used my little scissors here to cut these out. It was some simple letters, so it wasn't nothing too bad. So, but normally I would send this design to my cutter, let my cutter cut it out, and go on about my day. Now, when I'm doing applique designs with like my sequence fabric, I don't send that to the cutter. I tried that before. It was a hot mess. It did not cut correctly, and I won't do it again. So Now, what we have to do with each of these, and let me get my little tool here so I can peel off the backing. So I'm gonna start with one letter and just peel that backing off. And then I'm gonna just lay it down and make sure my placement is good. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and peel them all off really quick. This way I can just go ahead and put them down and be good to go. And I'm only putting one letter at a time because I'm gonna press one letter at a time, and then I'll go back and just press over everything, because I don't want to accidentally press one letter and one shifts and it accidentally, I iron on that part and then it's crooked. So that's why I do it this way when I make these types of designs. All right, and as you can see, the heat and bond just gives it a shiny little look on the back. That's how you know that the glue on there did stick to your fabric. So it transferred from the heat and bond to your fabric. So now we have that off, and I'm just lining everything up. And again, I'm doing one letter at a time, and I'm gonna just take my iron, I'm gonna hold it, and I just want to apply some heat. All right, and you don't have to have it on there for a long time. Now with the O, I am going to have to, after this next stitch, I am going to have to come back and cut out that circle because I forgot to put it in there, but it's only that little piece, so it'll be very, very simple to do. And so I'm just lining that up, and that looks good. And I'm holding one side while I press the other, and then once that side lays down, then I'll go ahead and just press the whole thing. And the next piece, so this is the process, but this is so much faster, as you can see, than having to cut out the applique. And you can do this again with any standard applique. You can use your cutter machine to cut it down. I know not everyone has a laser, and sometimes learning how to move your image into that laser software to make sure it's sized right and then have it cut is a process in itself. So I just normally, again, use my cutter. And this is the last one. And I am not pressing that, I'm leaving room for that middle part. So I'm kind of more so pressing the edges on that one. All right. So there we go. We have our letters on there, and now we are ready to put it back on the machine and stitch out. So I'm gonna go ahead and let it do the next stitch, which is the tack down stitch, and then I'm gonna take it off, cut out the center, put it back on, and let it finish the final satin stitch. So let me get this on the machine and I'll be back shortly. All right, let's get our finished design off the machine. And this turned out so nice. Look how clean that is. And I will have links in the description for both Mighty Hoops as well as the By Mirror in case you want to check them out if you're looking to add Mighty Hoops or upgrade to a multi-needle machine or even get another multi-needle machine. So I'll make sure to have those links in the description box. You will get free shipping with Mighty Hoops, and you will get $100 off your By Mirror embroidery machine. Oh my gosh, that turned out perfect. That's exactly why I like to do the letters sometimes versus just cutting out the fabric, because it stitches out beautifully. All right, so let's get this cleaned up. Let me grab my lighter And like I always say, you don't have to use a lighter to clean up your thread. I like to do that, but you can just use some snips. If you're using a lighter, don't just hold it in one place. Make sure you're moving it back and forth so you don't burn through your stabilizer and burn your garment. All right, and I got a couple more that I missed. So let me get those. All right. So now let's get the stabilizer cut away. This turned out so nice. And you can do this if you just want to create maybe like a seamless pattern. I do like to create seamless patterns in Procreate and then use that as fabric. Or sometimes if a customer is requesting a particular design or something like that, you can do that with this as well. So it's really a nice way to personalize and customize your garments for your customers. All right, last piece of our stabilizer. I'm gonna just cut these ends off a little bit and get that over here, and then we will be done. And now I am going to heat press this now to make sure that heat and bond fully adheres to the sweatshirt. But yeah, that turned out cute. So this is how it turned out. As you can see, there's no fabric or anything sticking out. Sometimes that can happen with applique. So kind of once you finish the stitch out, you kind of have to go back and kind of snip away a little bit. But I love doing this method, either again printing and cutting out my image, or just sending my polyester, when I'm using polyester fabric, sending that to my cutter and let it cut out. But again, I will have those items linked in the description box, as well as MakerFlo crafts, so you can get check out their sublimation paper. Or I do use the Epson SC F570 sublimation printer. That is the printer that I use. They also have a Epson, I believe it's the SC F170, I believe. So it is a smaller format sublimation printer, but it's a printer that you don't have to convert to sublimation. It comes with Epson sublimation ink, and I haven't had any issues using the Epson sublimation ink and then the MakerFlo craft sublimation paper. I feel like they're a perfect combination, and as I showed you earlier, the ink release on that paper is insane. But until next time, I will see you in the next tutorial. If you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up if you enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.